mastery of ice is peerless.
Hey guys, Banana Luck here and welcome back to another Watcher of Realms video. So we are back with Boreas today, the 2x 10x event that's coming out this weekend, and we finally took a greater look at his skills because we've heard so many hype around him, how he's a better version of Khamet who does, damage as well as anti-heal when he freezes, and today we'll be taking a look at his skill kit, and I really like that they have cinematic videos for all these heroes that are coming from global Forerunner to global server, right? So Boreas is from the Esotericis faction, so the faction with Venomas Cyrus as the Lord. So one of the additional mages, because I think right now in the faction there's only Raiden and Khamet and Talon that does damage, but this guy looks wacky. It looks really good. I've seen some CCs put out video on him and is absolutely demolishing Gear 1. I'm looking forward to him. I'm gonna try to pull for him with my divines that I've saved up. So I told myself I'll save for Khamet, but this guy seems pretty damn good, even on point with Khamet. And to look at stats wise, range, I think this range is pretty okay. Stats wise, it's pretty average for a mage as well. Attack interval of 2.6. Nothing too wow there. But just take a further look at his skill kit. So whenever he's attacking, there's a chance for him to inflict freeze, and this is for 3 seconds. Not as, lackluster as Gwendolyn, right? Her heal when she breaks the shield, the freeze is for like 0.5 seconds. Pretty shit if you're asking me, and I think Boreas is just better in that regard. And take a look at his basics. It's just dealing magic damage to one enemy, and that scales up to 120%. But things get really more interesting when you look at his ultimate. So first, the Endowment activates Eternal Ice Haven, increases damage by 225%, and each attack will reduce the trigger interval of Frozen Purification by 1 second, and this effect lasts for 30 seconds at max. And the skill cost is 1200 at max level. So let's break it down a bit, right? So what's Eternal Ice Haven? So when allies inflict freeze on enemies, deals additional massive damage, and the additional damage is affected by the duration of freeze inflicted, cooldown 1.5 seconds. So I think this pairs well with the likes of, AI, the mage that casts the crystal bombs, and then also Mari as well. But given that he's from the Esotericis faction, I would think that, pairing him with Mari does not make as much sense as AI, because AI does dish out some pretty wacky damage as well. I have gotten her to about 30 million damage at like Gear 121. So yeah, I mean that's one thing. And then there's Frozen Purification as well, which, if I'm not wrong, yep, it's this one. So when deployed, deals 160% magic damage to up to 10 enemies in range and inflicts freeze on them. And this effect triggers one time every 20 seconds afterwards. So this is a slightly shorter freeze, and you can see that during Eternal Ice Haven, the skill trigger interval is reduced by 10 seconds. So at max level, this is going to go down to 16 seconds, and reduced by extra 10 seconds, 6 seconds, it's gonna be triggering at least 5 times at max cap, right? And I think that's pretty wacky. A lot of control coming in, and he's gonna be freezing from his normal attacks as well, so lots of disable there. And the very last passive, when enemies are inflicted with freeze, they will also receive anti-healing, and when he attacks any enemies inflicted with freeze, there's extra 35% damage and 55% at max level. So you can start to already see him pairing really well with Khamet if you use both of them together. And this removes the need for Lazir, because you normally only need anti-freeze when you're bursting down the units. You don't really need it like 24/7. So I can see how people will pair him with Khamet and or even Vienna and Boreas as well. But I'm just trying to see where the AoE damage is, but I think it's gonna come from Eternal Ice Haven with the Frozen Purification triggering every 6 seconds. I mean, that's my guess. Hard to tell without actually doing the actual testing how that works, because from what I've seen people doing, he does. Oh, okay, I get it now. Because Frozen Purification is reduced by 1 second every time he attacks. So I was wrong. This is not just gonna trigger 5 times. It's gonna trigger way more than that. So I guess that's where the AoE comes in. So he does that extra damage, 200% actually, up to 10 enemies. So just like his skill kits, I mean, just from a quick look here, it looks like he's very good in theory. It'd be really nice to actually get copies of him. So let's take a look at Awakenings to see why we say copies, right? So of course, Awakening, I think this is pretty wacky. During the ultimate, trigger chance of hero's talent increases by 40%. So that he has that talent where he freezes for, 10% chance, right? So this goes up to 50% at max at Awaken 1. And Awaken 2 is 5% attack. That's gonna go a long way, given his low base attack. A3, Frozen Purification goes up to 250%. A4, it's a Rage Regen, increased by 1 for auto, and the ultimate duration goes up to 40 seconds at max level. In my opinion, having him at A1 is a dream already. I think that's more than good enough, and I think A3 is nice for the extra boost, but I don't think you need to get him to A5, unless you're a whale. So if you ask me, A1 is perfectly sweet, that's good enough. The extra freeze just means more control, right? Even if you didn't trigger Frozen Purification, but judging from the way I see it, if you build enough attack speed on him, this guy is gonna be pretty wacky, the amount of control and damage and he dishes out. And not to forget, he's from the Esotericis faction, right? So if you have Cyrus or, let's just go back here. If you have Venoma or Cyrus, his ally skill cost is going to go down by 25%, right? So that means that, this skill cap is going to go down to, let's do the math here, 900 instead. So that's going to be a pretty high uptime. And it'll be amazing to see how he changes the mana for AoE Arena as well. I think that's something that I've chatted with some of guys on Discord just to see, how things will change with Boreas in, because at first when we heard of him, sounds like he's just another Mary, but looks like he does some pretty wacky damage, and I think having him at A3 will really be a dream come true. He's gonna replace Khamet for sure if you don't have him. And given that I have not seen the Khamet 10x event coming anytime soon, I think we're gonna go for Boreas this weekend. But of course, there's some caveats to that. There's Setram and Orim, and Orim, from what I've seen or heard, seems pretty awful. And just looking at the cost turns me off already, 25 cost. So will be interesting to see how things pan out. Of course, I'll be summoning for this weekend and hopefully get two copies of Boreas. One copy of Setram will be nice as well, but I'll very much prefer Boreas so that we can clear gear rate 121. But that's it for the video, guys. Thanks for tuning in. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave it down in the comment section below, and please leave a like or subscribe if you'd like to support the channel. And of course, all the best for your summonings this weekend, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.